always loved and admired Peter's talk. I'm always praying that he's absolutely accurate because I've given his talks many times now. But today, I want to say, Peter, you probably saved me at least several $100s in political donations, so I really appreciate you. I was just about to hit that press, you know. I was really thinking, am I going to get back in time? Because really interesting. Okay. I was going to wear these, but they have a transformation of their own. They get dark. So just in case they decide to transform in front of our eyes, I won't. Swamiji, in the first chapter of his Raja Yoga course, has a line that has stuck with me since I first read it. It just says so much. Of course, almost all of his lines do, but he said, there's a preface to it, and I don't know what that is, but basically, in order to learn what you're about to learn in these 14 classes of Raja Yoga, he said, it takes a complete revolution of the mind. It's such a beautiful phrase, really, on a couple of levels for me, because first of all, he's right, and we know this. Of course he's right, but we come in, and the very nature of our human birth, and I'm aware that this is kindergarten for all of us, but I'm just going to start here anyway. The very nature of our birth means that we're born into delusion. And as soon as we're born, now I'm beginning to understand why, really, as I listen to Peter, but we're hijacked in so many ways. We're just taught so many things from the very first minute. And so first, it takes a revolution of the mind to move on to a spiritual path, which means in the sense of a revolution, we have to completely turn our minds around. In fact, eventually, we have to transcend the mind, of course, which is the second meaning that I always get out of that line, which means we have to have a revolution here. We really need to go to war with everything that we've been taught. And so in a sentence, he just sets up for me, when I'm teaching that, my whole first class. We're often teaching it to newer people than I think many of us are. But I just love that complete revolution of the mind. There's, I heard a joke the other day about a student who said to his meditation teacher, if I practice really diligently, how long will it take me to achieve enlightenment? And the teacher stops and he looks at the student and he says, 10 years. And the student thinks about it and he says, okay, if I really double my effort, if I really go after it, if I take it on with all my mind, how long will it take me? And the teacher stops very calmly and he looks at him and he says, 20 years. And it's funny, except it's how really the vast majority of people in the world think about it. They do not have that realization yet that the things that we really need to know, the things that are really going to impact our lives in a positive direction, all of what we think we want and what we think we're aiming for can really never be known to us through the mind, that they can only come to us from a place of intuitive perception in that infinite consciousness. I mean, we use these words all the time and we know it, but there's a path that we're traveling to get from everything in the world that's happening to us and impacting us to that place of calmness, of introspection, of deep devotion, of deep love. And everything along that path is really transformation. It's our soul's transformation. I love the inspiration that was behind this whole week of classes, because I have to say, I didn't look at it very carefully until I was up here. But when I was thinking of this line of transformation, I was looking at the days. Jyotish and Devi, of course, present us with this overview, this presentation. They talk about a little bit of everything in a very deep way on day one. And then we talk about karma, and then we talk about the chakras, and now we're talking about meditation, and tomorrow we'll talk about the guru. And it's just so perfect how we're growing into our spiritual transformation and our spiritual life. So meditation is many things for us. First of all, it is the knowing that we need to start moving energy in an upward direction. These are not thoughts or realizations or an awareness that many people have. But once we begin meditating, we see that we need to begin to move our energy in an upward direction. And that we need to develop the habit of doing that. And I don't know the neurobiology, but I think it's completely wrapped up with what Peter is telling us, that we have to have that habit. Many of you know that, I took a month off, and it took me really 6 to 9 months to arrange a month off. In other words, it was precious to me. I was attached, I'll admit it. And I never planned to be in seclusion, but I planned to be at home every day and quiet, and that's what I planned. That's not what Master thought I needed. So suffice it to say, 2 weeks into the time, I had my purse stolen, my wallet stolen out of my purse at Safeway. And I said to myself right away, right at the cash register, when I went to reach for my wallet and it wasn't there, oh, this is just going to be such an inconvenience. That's what I said. And anyway, it was, and it was a bit of a major inconvenience. But the only reason I'm telling this story is because I went to the police station. I had to file a report in order for Safeway to release the video. I knew exactly the moment and exactly the aisle I was in when this adorable little 18-year-old took my wallet. I knew what happened. I was scammed and it worked. But what was fascinating to me that happened at both the police station, then after a cumulative 7.5 hours at the DMV, 4 hours in Social Security, and on and on and on. But the policeman said to me at the very end of this hour with them, "You're not angry, are you?" And I said, "No, I'm not angry." And they said, "Don't you want to get her and press charges?" And I said, "Not really. I'd love to get her and talk with her. I'd like to tell her, this is so bad for you, what you're doing." I said, "I may ask her to give me back my 40 hours in volunteer time." He said, "We dread these encounters because people come in here and they're so angry and they pour all that anger on us." And he said, "We were just waiting for you to come." I said, "Oh, no, I'm not angry." I wasn't. And I realized, that when we begin to train our mind, after however long it takes us to get in that direction of energy coming upward, that so much of the spiritual path and so much about meditation is really about redirecting energy. Gyandev said it beautifully yesterday. He said the whole thing is about bringing energy in, because in is the only place where we can ultimately know everything, where we can get to that point of infinity or eternity. When you're going out, no matter how seductive the draw is, it's a dead-end street. We find that out over and over and over. The only way to be free is to come in and to go up. We know that meditation takes us from ego consciousness to soul consciousness, to using consciousness and energy rather than other mediums to try and get what we want. that meditation takes us from affirmation of ideas or goals to the experience of those goals. And we also know that we learn through meditation, particularly through Kriya, that every breath has the possibility of taking us closer to God. But here's where I'd really like to go for the rest of this talk, and that is, we also find through meditation that it brings us, it speaks to us, the way we've learned it, what we discover in our spine, in our astral spine, with every breath, is that we're moving towards Om. We're moving towards that, the sound of that vibration that is the creation from the infinite spirit of everything that we see. I don't know how many of you did this, but I have now listened to the sounds of the sun many times since Monday, really saying to myself, get that sound, bring it into your mind, set it as a goal. That's where you're going. But then through Om, through it, beyond it, to that point of absolute silence that's at the core of every atom of our being. That silence from which all creation is really a reflection of that center of every atom in our being. And that path that we're on, that we say we're going to come from creation back to that point of infinite awareness. That's what we call transformation. We call it transcending the delusion that everybody comes in with. That's transformation. But realizing that we're a reflection of something that we want to come back into and know, that is how meditation becomes transformation. To really learn to enjoy that silence. Swamiji said in a talk that he gave that I heard recently, he was talking about his time with Rajasi, who was, for those of you who don't know, Yogananda's foremost, most highly evolved male disciple. And Swamiji said he used to go and sit with Rajasi. He said Rajasi had no interest ever in small talk. Swamiji said, I used to sit at his feet and wonder, does he just not have anything to say? He said, but he realized that Rajasi had come to such peace, to such terms with that inner silence, that he was heading right into the center of every atom of his being. And Swamiji was saying in this talk, that is what we need to do. We need to learn to practice being not just comfortable with the inner silence, but holding it as our goal, that understanding that in that silence lies the realization that we were made in the image of God, and in that particular place, that we can learn to love ourselves, that we will love the highest manifestation of our being. That is what, this is not something Swamiji said now, he did say that, but that you begin to realize that love that sits there, eventually, after you sit in that silence and you appreciate the absolute stillness of the heart there. You know, that line, we heard this song earlier this week, come to us when our hearts are still. It's such a beautiful line in Swamiji's song, because it's that stillness. It's not come to us when, it's the knowing that it is the only way that God can come to us, that he cannot reach us as hard as we're trying, even in meditation, to move to that place so that we can receive that divine energy, we have to still our hearts. This is what Diksha was saying yesterday when she was talking about the fourth chakra. It's so, not like every chakra isn't important, of course they are, but in that chakra we begin to realize our own formlessness, and we can quiet and still our emotions there, and the divine can enter. And when we spend enough time there in meditation, and we begin to realize and have the experience of love, and then we move beyond that, and we come to that place where we know beyond a shadow of a doubt, I am love. And suddenly those words, which have just felt like words for lifetimes, and certainly in this lifetime for me for years, we come to that perfectly still, quiet place, and we realize that is what we are. That is how we were made. That is transformation. Knowing that Divine Mother is not only there, but that we are that. And when we become assured, again, beyond a shadow of a doubt, that that love is in our hearts, that joy is within us, that's transformation. When I first read this topic about meditation and transformation, it sort of boggled my mind. I thought, how can you narrow it down and talk about any one aspect of it? Because all of our meditation is carrying us along this road. And it's not like transformation is something waiting at the end of it. We are souls on a journey. And everything we do, every right attitude, every moment of serving, every act of love, every time we say to somebody, when you see me being hijacked, put your finger on me and say to me, stop. When we do those things, that's all on this path of transformation. Divine Mother lives within us. She manifests through us when we allow it. It's no longer, as I was thinking about this talk and meditating on it, it clarified something for me. It's not Divine Mother. It's Divine Mother. It's worshiping that our own infinite self from that knowing of infinite love and infinite joy. You know, we've all heard that Sri Yukteswar talked a lot about devotion and that we cannot move to a place of enlightenment. I always heard that he said, you can't put one foot in front of the other without practicing the heart's devotion, without developing it. I actually got the quote from his book, The Holy Science, and I want to read it to you because when Diksha was talking yesterday and then Gyandev, and I was realizing how the word, I'm having trouble finding the word, essential the work that we do in our chakras is, and particularly as we move upward, how important it is to be paying attention to what devotion is, to what expansion is, to what wisdom is, because wisdom really is the power of the soul to know the truth. And I thought we need to really develop practices day by day, bring it into our meditation. Of course, we do this through Kriya, to just be working at every chakra. Sri Yukteswar said, after acknowledging in paragraphs before that God is waiting for us through our devotion to invite his help. Sri Yukteswar says, hence the culture of this love, the heavenly gift, is the principal thing for the attainment of holy salvation, and it is beyond doubt impossible for man to advance a step towards the same without this. It is impossible for man to advance a step towards enlightenment without realizing devotion. It means realizing it. It means knowing it. It doesn't mean thinking about it or working towards it. I thought that if we took something away from this week that we could focus on, something not new to any of us, but a reawakening of some old thoughts about meditation, that we could look at the line that we all say every week in our festival, "Open your heart to me, and I will enter and take charge of your life." Again, because opening the heart means the realization that we are that love. You know, when we talk about, again, receiving God, when we talk about this journey up the chakras, we're talking about raising ourselves up. This is one of the primary goals of our meditation. And I thought, what if we took that phrase home and we just started repeating it to ourselves, not just on Sundays, not just when we hear it in the festival, but if every day we were saying, "I'll open my heart to you so you can enter and take charge of your life." And it takes great courage and steadfastness to do this. Swamiji said about Master, he said he was so enthusiastic and earnest. Swamiji said most of us look for reasons to not meditate. Master always looked for reasons to meditate. And Swami said it takes courage. You have to have this ferocious courage. I think that was mentioned. Maybe Devi mentioned it earlier in the week. But Swamiji said it, to be able to do this. The path is clear. It's obvious to us. We hear these beautiful words about realizing Divine Mother in our heart. But look at all of what we have to let go of. Look at the tendencies to not want to take an employee and say, "What is wrong with you?" You know, I had an adorable experience here the other day. I decided to go up on Tuesday to buy a card at the Crystal Hermitage gift shop. And I walked over there and I checked it out with somebody. I said, "Is it open at 1:30? Yeah. So I was with a friend, and we sat there from 1:30 to 2:15. And by 2:15, I said, "Let's just go." But I also said, boy, you know, they should at least send somebody up here to put out a sign. And what are they thinking? People are... And I said more, which I'm not going to expose anymore about what I said. But there was more. And so, and I looked at my friend. I said, "What day is today?" She said, "Wednesday." I said, "Yeah, I thought it was Wednesday." So we're driving down the hill, and Om Prakash is driving by us. He, by the way, opens and runs that gift shop in his golf cart. So I stop. I said, "Om Prakash, I've been waiting for you for 45 minutes. He was not frazzled at all. He said, "Really?" He said, "You know, we're not even usually open on Tuesdays." And I said, "Is it Tuesday?" And he said, "Yeah." But then he said the most adorable thing to me. He said, "Let me ask you." He was not being judgmental. He was sharing in the most beautiful way. He said, "Did you have a little bit of that feeling of like self-righteousness and where are they?" And I said, "Caught." I mean, there was no way out of it. You know, it's so natural to go to these places. And like Peter said, it just always feels so right. So what practices how are we going to remind ourselves? We're all already meditating. How can we deepen our meditation? How can we recharge it? How can we say, I'm going to use this next year till next year, Spiritual Renewal Week, and really move myself further towards this total transformation, to move more quickly down that path. I had, and I'll close with this now, but there was another interesting thing that happened. A few friends, I made breakfast for a few people on Tuesday morning, and at the end of the conversation, we spent about 15 or 20 minutes talking about Swamiji's song, The Hill That Was Tara. And we just got into how much we love that song, and we went through it line by line. And of course, we came here, and the song that was sung was The Hill That Was Tara. I mean, talk about thoughts being universally rooted. But I'd like us to just hold a couple of those lines as we're thinking about opening our heart and letting God enter, about raising our energy up, about calming our feelings in the heart, about living more consciously, thoughtfully every day with the realization that Divine Mother is sitting in there, guiding us, helping us into this transformation. That when we can get quiet enough and still enough that we are that, just like we say in Hong Sa all the time. I'm just looking for the words here so that I don't do what I often do in the midst of something and forget them. But the end of that song, of course, many people here will know this, but Swamiji wrote, I knew in a moment that the deeds that men do never die. Each victory is true. That's so powerful. It means every single thing that we do helps us build our way towards the final transformation from ego consciousness to soul consciousness, from affirmation to experience. Everything we do. And then he says, every effort we spend brings more life, gives more strength in the end, till our gladness enjoys ever new. And I realized after we were talking about it and after I listened to it, of course it is ever new. It's that point of utter silence, that place of intuitive perception, that constantly renewing of God's love in every atom in our being. It never gets old. Every time we can find our way back there, our gladness enjoys. All of a sudden, I was thinking there was a medical emergency. That's usually when I'm called. So I thought to myself, okay, rest at that point of intuitive perception. Let me just end here with a charge to all of us that we carry with us this thought of opening our heart where Divine Mother lives, where our highest and truest self lives, and let us appreciate ourselves moment by moment in our highest form as much as we can throughout this next year.